Welcome to the Horror Next Door. Now that we have finally finished the Children of the Corn series, I thought it would be fun to put all the parts from our What We Watched series into one video for you all to enjoy. Perhaps we will do this with other film series as we finish them. Be sure to send us your movie recommendations and to follow us on Letterboxd. And most importantly, don't forget to subscribe, or Isaac will get you.
Children of the Corn from 1984, which we watched on a rented Netflix disc because Psycho didn't want to watch my VHS copy. I remember this movie from when I was a kid. I was super duper young when it first came out, but I think it was on TV quite a bit or something because Isaac scared the crap out of me when I was little, and Malachi was pretty creepy too. So this is one of those situations where it's creepy kids, and that's always pretty freaky. I mean, the idea of kids just rising up against the adults and getting rid of all of them is insane. I really like this movie. I can see why some people don't, because it has really cheesy dated effects, and I guess some of the acting might not be people's taste, but I just think the casting is amazing. That John Franklin guy that plays Isaac, I mean, that was perfect casting, and I love little Job. He's my favorite character. I really like both him and Sarah, and rewatching this as an adult again, I just get reminded of how super duper annoying Bert was. Just a total jerk. He was kind of mean to the Linda Hamilton character that I can't remember the name of. He was bossing these little children he didn't even know around. I just don't like him. So I just think Job is the real hero of this whole thing. Anyway, I definitely recommend this, especially, if you're a Stephen King fan. So
I've never been a huge Children of the Corn fan. I haven't seen any of the sequels. I've only seen this first one, and we're just now deciding, you know what, let's watch them all. So we're slowly making our way through the series. That being said, I would recommend this movie, but I've just never really been on the whole Children of the Corn bandwagon. I'm not a huge fan of it, but it is creepy, the first one at least, and it is enjoyable. I will say this, I think I remember more about the South Park episode that they did where they pretty much parodied this entire storyline. I love South Park, and I think it's funny, so if you like South Park, or if you haven't seen it in a while, you should seek out that episode. It's funny. Children of the Corn 2, The Final Sacrifice from 1992, which we watched on Amazon Video. And as the title says, this is the last Children of the Corn movie they ever made. Oh, never mind. They made 20 more of these.
Psych.
But it was funny watching the trailer for this before we watched the movie, and it's the final whatever the hell they say in the trailer. It's yeah, okay. I don't know, just couldn't get into this one. Definitely not anywhere near as good as the first one, obviously. It had some okay parts, but overall, don't recommend it.
Yes, they went down some pretty cliche horror movie paths on this, and it was really annoying. I think one of the things about Children of the Corn is that it's not really comparable to anything else. I guess that you could equate it to, okay, couple enters a small town and weird shit happens, but I don't know. I just feel like there were so many generic things about this. I especially felt like the relationships that the main characters, a dad and his teenage son, the relationships that they had with the female characters in this felt so forced and so weird, just flat out unnecessary. This series is supposed to be about creepy kids, and they're anti-adults based on this religion or whatever you call it, so it needed to just be that. Also, the fact that John Franklin wasn't in this, I feel says a lot, and it shows. He made Children of the Corn what it was, and I do completely 1000% give the replacement actor that they put in here sort of as a placeholder for Isaac credit. He was epic, he was trying so hard, and he was the best part of this movie, but I still definitely do not recommend it. Sorry. Children of the Corn 3 Urban Harvest from 1995, which we watched on DVD. Despite my low Letterboxd rating, because this isn't a good film, I actually liked it more than part 2. I loved the quote-unquote Isaac replacement in part 2. That actor was kicking major butt, and he was really putting his heart in it, and good for him. He was the best part of the movie. This one was just so wild and over the top and crazy, and also I thought it was hilarious because the quote-unquote Isaac Isaac replacement in this one is the same kid from Demonic Toys, and somehow locked away in my brain somewhere, I knew that immediately when he appeared on the screen, despite never having seen this movie. I don't know how I remembered him, but I think it's because he just has a very creepy demeanor, and he just has the perfect face for a friggin' little like horror child. You know what I'm saying? Like a creepy kid in a horror film. It's actually kind of a shame because I looked him up after we watched this, and he pretty much stopped acting after this, I think. But I think in the same way the Isaac replacement in part 2 carried the movie, that this kid, Daniel Cerny, carried this movie. He was definitely the best part. There were also some very 90s moments that were hilarious and ridiculous that probably made me like it more than I should. It's a Children of the Corn sequel, so you know what you're getting into. If you get past that barrier, then yes, I do recommend this movie.
So the one aspect about this film that I do not understand why they decided to go in that route is the fact that this takes place in an urban setting. All the other Children of the Corns, as far as I know of, are in the middle of nowhere. And then this one's like, oh, we're going to go to the city. I don't know. Just another gimmick, I guess. All the stuff that happens at the very end of the movie is definitely just over the top and kind of ridiculous. There's a giant monster that appears, and I don't even know what it's supposed to be or what it's supposed to represent. It's just crazy, kind of cheesy, but kind of fun at the same time. And also, Charlize Theron appears in this movie as one of the school kids that gets rounded up by this new Isaac leader guy. And if you blink, you'll miss her, but she's there. I guess I kind of feel that part 2 and part 3 are kind of on par for me. Neither one of them were really much better than the other. I do like the quote-unquote Isaac character in the second one over this one. I probably wouldn't recommend this movie unless you are just a diehard Children of the Corn fan, or if you've never seen these movies and you really want to watch them, then check it out.
Children of the Corn 4, The Gathering from 1996, which we watched on a DVD Children of the Corn box set, actually. Okay, going into this, I'm thinking Naomi Watts and Karen Black are in it. It can't be that bad. This was my least favorite sequel we've watched so far. It was just all over the place. There really wasn't a lot going on with Corn or He Who Walks Behind the Rose or friggin' anything. I don't even know what this movie was. And then there were these parts that were so over the top and weird and random to the point where they were sort of corny. I mean, mostly the death scenes, I guess. And then the villain, like the main big bad guy that's, you know, recruiting all these kids and stuff, if you want to call him the Isaac of this one, you can. He was barely in the movie. It was like in the last 10 or 15 minutes, all of a sudden he was trying to do things. And then I won't do spoilers as if it matters because this movie's lame. But like I said, this is my least favorite sequel so far. And it kind of stinks because especially Naomi Watts, I really like her acting. And I know this is probably one of the first things she did or something, but unfortunately I really can't recommend this. I'm really trying to give these movies a benefit of the doubt, and there is always like this weird charm about them that I don't know how to explain, but I just feel like this one wasn't fun to watch at all. Super forgettable.
So I will have to agree that up to 4, just the first 4 films, this is definitely the worst one of the bunch. And I think, if I recall correctly, while we were watching this, we were saying we need to change our rating for 3 and 2 because this one's just so bad. We can't have this one be the same rating as the other ones. Like, I wasn't a huge fan of 3, but after seeing 4, 3 is actually a masterpiece compared to this. But yes, Naomi Watts couldn't save this movie. Sorry, do not recommend it. Children of the Corn 5, Fields of Terror from 1998, which we also watched on the Children of the Corn DVD pack. So this is the one that has Eva Mendes in it, randomly. So this movie was slightly better than 4, which isn't really saying much, but the death scenes in this movie were much better than 4, which is probably part of the main reason we gave this a higher rating. Also, I'm just now remembering that David Carradine is in this one. If you don't know, he's Bill from Kill Bill. I kind of recommend this one. Obviously, it's Children of the Corn 5. I mean, you have to be psychopaths like us to watch a series like this, but I recommend it.
I liked this more than I should have because it felt like a ripoff of the Scream, I Know What You Did Last Summer, urban legend type films that were coming out like crazy in the 90s, and I'm such a sucker for that. Alexis Arquette is like a ripoff Jamie Kennedy from Scream, and I don't know the actor's name, I apologize, but there's this other dude that's kind of like a Jensen Ackles ripoff. I don't know, I just found it kind of hilarious how 90s this was, the way they took something like Children of the Corn and tried to make it feel something like a Scream film. There were a couple of really specifically awesome death scenes, but I have to reference the one where the sheriff or the cop or whatever gets his head exploded. It was so cool, and I'm pretty sure that automatically elevated my rating, so I do recommend this movie. You could definitely skip part 4. These movies don't go with each other at all. Even though this isn't good by any means, it was fun to watch. Children of the Corn 666, Isaac's Return from 1999, which we watched on that same DVD pack. Wow. Do not get excited about John Franklin returning because this sucked so bad. I'm really sorry. This was ridiculous. There were so many weird and unnecessary things in this movie. It was very odd. It was just odd. I did like the lead actress. I've never seen her in anything else, but she was a likable person, and I thought she did a serviceable job, especially in such a terrible film. And I'm so sorry to insult it because I guess John Franklin helped write it, so I really apologize, but wowee, this was all over the place and not in a very fun or likable way. I unfortunately couldn't recommend it.
So first, I'll just say that this is the Children of the Corn that has Nancy Allen and Stacy Keach in it randomly. I think it's crazy how even though some of these movies aren't really that great, it has these random actors in it you've all heard of. So that's interesting. One of the things about the Children of the Corn series that I'm not liking, because I'm watching this series for the first time, is that none of them really connect with one another. There's no overarching story of any kind. There's no threads that continue into the next movie. It's really just corn and crazy kids, and sometimes that's pretty much it. There's religious stuff, sometimes there's not. So honestly, Isaac's Return was one of the ones I was most looking forward to seeing because I was like, okay, they're gonna have some kind of connection here, some kind of continuing plot line because he was in the first one. But then the way that they explain him coming back is he's been alive this whole time in a coma. What? So you mean to tell me when all the other movies were taking place, Isaac was there the whole time in a coma? Like, or are you trying to say that none of the other ones took place and now there's this one? This is just a direct sequel. I don't know. These plot lines are all over the place. They don't make any sense. And my excitement for Isaac's Return was disappointing. I do not recommend this movie. I'm sorry. The only thing I can say is that I blame Dimension Films because they kind of did the same thing with the Hellraiser series when it went straight to video. All of them were just random stories and they never made any sense.
Children of the Corn Revelation from 2001. I can't recall where we watched this. It was probably a rented Netflix disc, but if it wasn't, then it was probably Tubi because Tubi has everything and is awesome. This, again, did not really feel like a Children of the Corn film. I guess it was more so than Genesis. The main woman, she's basically just trying to find out what happened to her grandmother. And, you know, spoilers for anyone who hasn't caught up to movies from 2001 or cares enough about spoilers from a Children of the Corn sequel. It turns out her grandmother was one of the Children of the Corn back in the day, and I guess she bailed on the whole culty religious thing that the Children of the Corn are, and they came back for her and killed her, and then her ghost as a child was haunting the building where she lived. I guess I feel like the main actress was likable and did a decent job. There were just some basic horror elements that worked fine in this. Just okay. It was very run-of-the-mill. I guess it was less than average, but for a Children of the Corn film, I don't know how corny, I don't know how corny it really was. It's just kind of there. Would loosely recommend it if you're invested in trying to complete the Children of the Corn series. It's better than some of the other ones I mentioned clearly, so I guess I'll give it that.
Another random direct-to-video sequel in the Children of the Corn series. This one was also not very good, but at least it has children and at least it has corn. Also, Michael Ironside is randomly in this. I think the one thing about this movie that really threw me off was the fact that there's a apartment building that was built right in the middle of the cornfield. Why would you build a building there? It doesn't make any sense, but whatever. That's this movie. Yeah, I really don't know much else to say about this movie. It was pretty forgettable. It was better than the 2009 Children of the Corn, but not really saying that much.
Children of the Corn 2009, which we watched on a rented Netflix disc. Sob, sob, sob. I still can't believe that is ending soon. I need to get on top of watching as many discs as I can and get off of streaming. Anyway, what the hell is this mess? I really hated this. I gave this the lowest possible rating that I could. I thought that the casting of the kids was terrible. I don't know if this was a desperation situation. I don't know what this was, but something weird was definitely going on. There's nothing right about this. They tried to take all the exact same occurrences, beats, cues, etc. from the OG Children of the Corn film, just update it, and it couldn't have been done more poorly. The characters couldn't have been less likable. The acting couldn't have been worse, mostly from the kids. The Isaac wannabe kid was just whatever. I can't even talk about this anymore. I hated it, and I do not recommend it in any way, shape, or form.
So this is the remake that was made in 2009, and it was remade specifically for the Sci-Fi Channel. I'm pretty sure that right there just sums up what you will probably expect from this movie. Didn't really care for this one much at all. The lead actor looked pretty familiar to me, and after looking him up, I found out he was in the iZombie show. The one thing that I really just do not like about this movie is the lead kid. I don't even remember if they referred to him as Isaac or anything like that, but the lead kid that's, orchestrating all this stuff, he's just not, Isaac. Even in some of the sequels that we've watched, some of the kids that are like the lead kid were much better than this kid. And also, I just can't get over the fact that he's got this giant hat on. I don't know. It looks pretty dumb to me. Sorry. I do not recommend this movie.
Children of the Corn Genesis from 2011, which I believe we watched on Tubi. Looking at this synopsis, cover, cast, nothing is ringing a bell. I can't remember this movie at all. Basically, this wasn't a Children of the Corn movie. This couple ended up at a random place in the middle of nowhere. I don't even remember how or why they got stranded or anything. I just remember the guy had a camera and the male half of the main couple found it and saw weird stuff on it or something, and he was taking 4,000 years to get it put back on the stand while his girlfriend was trying to distract the creepy dude, and it was really frustrating how long that scene lasted and how stupid it was that he was incapable of getting the camera he was trying to sneak a peek at back on the stand before the creepy dude came in, and then shit hit the fan and everything fell apart after that. It was like literally their undoing of what caused all the chaos and drama in this entire movie. I guess they were holding this child, singular, supposedly of the Corn, prisoner or something. I don't even really know what the creepy couple was doing, but the main couple was trying to help the kid, and then that's all I remember. There really wasn't corn, there really weren't children, plural, and I don't remember it, so I definitely don't recommend it. Somehow I rated this a half a star higher than the 2009 remake thing, so I guess there was something to it, but yeah, don't watch this.
This movie, in my opinion, is probably the worst Children of the Corn movie out of the entire series. And I only say that because it has nothing to do with the Children of the Corn. If you've even seen just the original Children of the Corn, there's nothing in this movie that resembles any of that. There's no cult of children running around. There's really no corn. I wouldn't be surprised if this was a script that was written about a couple that gets kind of kidnapped in this house by this guy that lives out in the middle of nowhere, and weird shit happens, and Dimension Films just got the script, added a few things in there, and slapped Children of the Corn on the title. There's your movie. But like I said, there's one kid, no cornfield, or if there was a cornfield, they barely showed the thing. It's mostly just these people stuck in a house the whole time. Hard pass on this one.
Children of the Corn, Runaway from 2018. Again, not certain where we watched this, but it was probably a Netflix disc, and if it wasn't, it was probably Tubi. I suppose I would have to say that the main character in this film, I wasn't really connecting with her. I wasn't really a fan of hers. I didn't like her all that much, so it was hard to get invested in anything. I did notice in a diner scene randomly that Clu Gulager was in there, and I apologize. I've never really known how to pronounce that last name. I was like, wait, is that Clu Gulager? And then when the credits were rolling and it said directed by John Gulager, I was like, oh my gosh, it had to be him. So then I went and looked at the cast, and it really was, and I couldn't believe it, but it really was him, and it was the voice. It was the voice that did it, but it was cool to see him in there. It was cool that it was directed by his son. Kind of like The Last Children of the Corn. It's not a horrible horror film. It's just not really all that much of a Children of the Corn film. It's a little less than average. I appreciate the efforts that were made to drive a plot line and have some sort of substance, because the majority of the other Children of the Corn sequels did not do that. So I do give it kudos for that. And again, loosely recommend if you're a completionist and you just want to do all of the Children of the Corn series, you could do worse than this one.
Another random Children of the Corn sequel, this time apparently released by Lionsgate. So the one thing I did find interesting about this is that the lead actress is apparently part of the Cult of Children. Not sure if it's connected to the original. I don't really remember right now, but He Who Walks Behind the Rose took everyone else in the cult and left her alive. She escapes, has a kid, and is now living in another state, trying to live her life. But then obviously some weird shit happens. So I did find that to be a little interesting, that at least it connected some way to one of the other films or some of the previous films. I would probably recommend this one over some of the others, but don't go in with huge expectations or anything like that.
Children of the Corn 2020. I apologize, but I am again failing to recall where we watched this. I believe it was a rented Netflix disc. I'm looking at my Letterboxd thinking my rating's a little high because I was really irritated by this movie. And I do think that some of the things they changed up work. That little girl, she's a total creep. She's a complete psycho. That was good casting. Even though there were times where it was a little bit over the top, it was unnerving to watch this small girl do and say some of the things she was doing. They definitely went overboard with the He Who Walks frickin' corn monster abomination of bad CGI. It would have been way cooler if they had just shown little super quick snippets of this, who they also call He Who Walks, and just end it there. They don't say He Who Walks Behind the Rose, they just say He Who Walks. So it would have been cool to just see little quick snippets of He Who Walks rather than them revealing the whole thing and showing way too much of it. It was so bad. The ending was stupid. A lot of it was stupid. I don't know why I gave it the same rating as the last two Children of the Corn movies, because I definitely didn't like it as much. I'm probably gonna go knock it down a half a star, because now that I'm thinking about it and talking about it, I didn't like it. I don't recommend it.
So this is the newest and latest Children of the Corn film as of this recording. Actual theatrical release or even the straight-to-video release didn't happen until this year, 2023. So I'll say this, I think this movie started off pretty well. I was actually pleasantly surprised and was getting into it. But then I feel like somewhere around the middle, it started kind of going off the rails a little bit. Although this is a remake, I did find the aspect of showing us the kids pretty much killing all the parents in town concept to be pretty interesting. In the original and in some of the other ones, I believe, they show you a little bit, they cut to years later and the kids are just by themselves and there's no parents around. He Who Walks Behind the Rose shows up. They don't really show you anything. All you hear is his footsteps and you see the children looking at it and their reactions and stuff. And I was like, oh, this is cool. They should leave it like this. Don't show us the monster. Just leave it to our imagination to what this thing is. And they do this for a while. And I was like, okay, they're not going to show it to us. Like, they're committed to not showing it to us. But then they finally cut to it. And I was like, oh, man, why did you cut to it? You should have just left it as sound effects. I would definitely recommend this movie more than obviously the 2009 remake that was made for the Sci-Fi Channel, but it is what it is.
As always, we thank you so much for watching. Leave us a comment if you have any horror movie recommendations and we will add them to our watch list. Until next time!